3, 2, 1.
Good morning, my name is Carson, and I will be demonstrating the proper care of a knife, a saw, and an axe. Now, the main knife I'm going to be using for this video is a utility knife, but I do also have a pocket knife on hand. This utility knife has 8 features. It has a pair of scissors, a bottle opener that can double as a can opener, a flathead screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver, a small knife, a file that also doubles for a measuring tool, and a normal switchblade kind of knife. It also has a pair of pliers down here when you split the 2 pieces apart. And yeah, so right now I will be demonstrating how to take care of the knife as of right now. And first I'm going to close all of these. And in order to close something that is all the way up, you have to press down on these little buttons and push it like that. Now, in order to care for a knife, you have to first point the knife away from you, use a wetting stone. In order to properly use it, you should definitely get some water or some cooking oil, wet the stone a little bit. If you use cooking oil, you're not going to be able to use water on it. And in order to sharpen the knife, first you have the blade pointing down at the stone. You have it at about a 45-degree angle, and you push it away from you, and you have the tip going against the stone at the very end. You should be able to put the entirety of the blade against the stone, and you should have run the entirety of the blade along the stone. And then you do the opposite in order to sharpen both sides.
One more time, both sides.
So for this again, you go like that, and then like that. So that is how to properly sharpen a knife. Now, most of these knives have multiple uses. You can use them to cut food, you can use them to make wood shavings for fire. The other tools can be used for many different things, and this is generally a multi-purpose tool.
Proper care.
And the proper care for it, once you've used it on something like food, you take all of the tools out, which is the only time that you should ever do so. You take all of the tools out, you get a cotton swab and wrap it in a little bit of a paper towel, get it a little bit wet, and use some soap to clean out the inside and also clean out the blade a little bit. Now, and then you use the cotton swab with the paper towel on it to clean out the inside of the knife where the blades and things usually are resting. Then you dry it off a little bit with a little bit of paper towel, and you make sure that there isn't any food stuff or shavings from wood left on the blade or inside the knife. Now, the proper way to care for a saw. The one I'm going to be using for this video is a bow saw, which, as you can see, has some spikes on the blade, and is very, very much serrated. It's very obvious serrations on the blade. Now, this type of bow saw is mostly used for cutting wood and tree limbs. I have a second bow saw down here, and as you can see, the serrations on this one are very fine, and this one is more used for cutting things like copper wire and metals and stuff. And in order to properly care for a bow saw, you have to make sure that the blade is sharp, and when the blade gets dull, you do not sharpen the blade most of the time. You get a new one, because a dull blade is very hard to control and can be very, very dangerous. Now, as for how you cut a tree limb or something like that with this knife, the first thing that you have to do is you have to make a small little incision at the bottom. You have to make a small incision at the bottom of the tree limb where it connects with the tree. So that way, when you're cutting downwards, the bark, and you pull the tree limb off, the bark doesn't rip off of the tree like a piece of skin or something. You have to make a small incision at the bottom. And then you slowly cut through the top of the tree limb where it meets the trunk of the tree until you reach that other little incision at the bottom, and then you can pull the tree limb off. And these saws are typically used for cutting off tree limbs. They're not usually used for cutting into the trunks. That's usually what an axe is for. And when you're done with the saw, what you do is you make a little sheath. You put it around the blade so that it doesn't grow dull or rust. And then you store it in like a storage set or something like that where little ones aren't going to find it and hurt themselves on it. And also to protect it from moisture because, again, rust. Now, finally, we have an axe. And the first thing with an axe is when you're using it to cut something, before you do that, you hold the blade, you stick your arm out, and you make a circle, and that's the cutting circle. And you have to make sure that there's nothing in the cutting circle so that way you don't hurt someone or anything like that. And in order to make a cutting circle, you have to do this, and you spin around in place, and nothing can be in the vicinity of the cutting circle. And that's the safest way. Now, when you're cutting a tree limb or something, first things first, when you're cutting, you need to wear thick boots, because if you don't wear thick boots and you mess up, then if you wear thick boots, you have something protecting your feet from the blade of the axe. You should not be wearing closed-toed shoes. You should not be wearing sandals or open-toed shoes or something like that. You should be wearing boots or tennis shoes or something like that. Now, you should also be wearing gloves in order to prevent bruising. I don't have gloves with me right now. And also, for safety, wear some goggles, because when you're cutting into wood, splinters could come flying out and could get into your eye. And you don't want that when you're dealing with a very sharp, heavy object. Now, in order to cut a piece of wood that's on the ground, first you have your hand near the hilt, near the head of the axe, like this, and your other hand should be at the bottom. You swing up, and as you're swinging down, your hand should come towards the hilt and swing down. And you want to swing away from your feet, like that. And in order to cut a piece of wood lengthwise, you want to have a piece of wood standing on something flat, like this rock or something like that. And I don't have any lumber with me that'd be good for that. So instead, I'm going to demonstrate how to cut something like this. Now, first you want to take off the sheath, and you snap the sheath off, and hold on, there we go. So you put the sheath right there, and in order to cut this, you want to make a small V-shaped incision about the width of the log in the top of it. So I'm not actually going to be cutting the log because I don't have the proper safety equipment with me, but you want to make an incision in the top of the log, a V-shaped incision that's about as thick as the log is wide. And that way you should be able to cut it in half, make a clean cut. And you want to do it on top of something like this, so that way if you mess up, it'll be hitting the rock or the table or whatever instead of hitting your foot. And once you're done with the axe, you want to put the sheath back on. I'm trying to figure out how to put the sheath back on. Okay, it slides up like that. So you want to put the sheath back on, and if you're handing the axe to someone else, you hold the axe out to them like this. You wait for them to say thank you.
Thank you.
And then you give it to them. And that is proper care and usage of a knife, a saw, and an axe. Thank you very much.